Hello, everyone. Welcome to Curveball. This is Heather Campbell, and I welcome to the show Corrie LoGiudice.
LoGiudice.
Oh,
It's okay. You're actually saying it correct in Italian, but my family Americanized it and made it difficult for everybody.
so you all morning, my husband is like, "What are you saying?" And I'm like, "I'm interviewing this woman. Her last name, it sounds like how did you pronounce it?
LoGiudice.
LoGiudice. Yeah. Like I said,
Which is why I just go by
looks
Cory
like that,
L.
but I'm sure it's not. So then I found someone whose last name was LoGiudice. And I'm just like, so all morning I'm like, LoGiudice. Okay.
Turn into a song.
Well, Cory L knows a thing
Cory
or
L.
two about starting over and over and over and over again. Try 5 times in 5 years. We're talking like not just little curveballs, miscarriage, divorce, abuse, suicide loss. Oh my God. All while holding down a high stress SVP role and raising a child solo in New York City, right? It's a kind of overwhelm that doesn't just knock the wind out of you. It makes you question if you're ever catch your breath again. But Cory turned those breakdowns into a blueprint for helping other women rise by identifying what she calls the overwhelm culprits. And she has that trademark, so she's serious about it. And turning paralyzing stress into actionable steps. She's now a speaker, a coach, and a calm in the chaos for high-performing women who feel like they're drowning in their own ambition. Cory, welcome to Curveball. How are you today? I am so excited you're here. We already started to have such a good chat. I'm like, I've got to stop and start recording this. So talk to me about, sort of take us back to that time, like that 5 years where you just kept on getting like the 1-2 punch. Mm-hmm. Sort of what was your state? And at what point were you just like, oh my God, like things have just I got to make a change. Something has to happen.
It's funny because it actually all started with a really expensive piece of paper that said I could draw well. Mm-hmm. So I graduated with a fine arts degree that I could do absolutely nothing with. And so I found myself waiting tables, and this really annoyed my dad, who helped bankroll said piece of paper. So he suggested, why don't you come and work for the family business instead of waiting tables? No shade to waiting tables.
Oh my gosh, you're in the mafia?
No.
Okay. Well, you said family business.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, it's a wholesale electronics distribution. It's okay. Very niche business. But either way, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll start as a graphic designer. That was the plan. I'm going to come in and do that. And I blink and it's 15 years later and I'm running it as senior vice president. And I am the youngest and only woman basically in my industry.
Oh my goodness.
So that kind of sets the stage. So from there, I went through a phase in 5 years where I experienced more trauma than most people experience in a lifetime. Started off with miscarriage. Then eventually I did have a son. I ended up leaving my ex-husband after he threw something at me. And I ended up taking my son with me to work one day. And
how old was your son? Oh my gosh.
5 months old. And ended up going through a very high conflict divorce. And in the meanwhile, I'm having to show up at work each and every day to lead,
kicking ass,
to do what I had to do. But I had all of this going on behind the scenes.
Right. And then you have to work in like a male. I don't know how tall you are, but are you petite by any chance?
No, I'm 5'8".
Okay. Are you, okay. Good. Because it's funny. Because I was like, I wonder if you're going to be like one of those like petite, like 5'2" firecrackers, with all those men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, I take up space. So either way, I'm going through this and I have a therapist at the time who tells me, she's like, Cory, you're doing things that my other patients can't do. Like, I don't know how you're able to like process all of this trauma that you're going through and still be able to show up and perform at the level that you're doing in your career. If you could teach other people how to do that, you could have a huge impact on people. So at that time, we were more or less exploring whether or not I was going to leave the family business, because while I was going through all of that, you mentioned before, I live right outside of New York City. The business was based in Brooklyn. I was commuting 4 hours a day. It was 2 hours going, 2 hours coming back.
Oh.
The most I ever got to see my son was through my home security camera systems while he played with my au pair. But that said, so I am deciding whether or not I'm even going to remain in the family business, because I couldn't run the hours. At the time, I was trying to get things like remote work, which it was before the pandemic, so no one was doing that. I'm sorry. Can I go
That's okay.
grab the toy from him quick?
Yes, yes,
Is that
yes,
okay?
yes, you can. Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, we're gonna
This is
listen to it
real
all day.
life, people. Yeah.
Real life. My cat is knocking my daughter's princess shoe all over the room. Fun. All right.
Those loud plastic ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I remember those.
She's like a hockey puck all around the room. So yeah, I'm going through this like phase where commuting like crazy. I'm never seeing my kid. I'm feeling really down. My therapist identifies something I could be doing that I'm thinking to myself, you think I could be somebody like Tony Robbins, you're nuts. Like that ain't ever going to happen. And so I keep going through day in and day out because that's what everybody thinks that they're supposed to do. And that's when I lost my post-divorce partner to suicide. So that was like the final curveball, I guess you could call it. And after that experience, I more or less decided, like, you know what? No, I think something needs to change. That change needs to start with me. Right. So I resigned from my 15-year career. I left an over 6-figure paycheck. I called it an emergency of my soul. I decided to use my emergency savings to bankroll a business of my own. I didn't know what that business was going to be at the time. And long story short, about, I want to say 6 months after that, I met my now husband, and I went from being a single mom of 1 to a married mom of 4 in a year during the pandemic. And about a year from that moment, I was on the TEDx stage sharing this framework I developed called the Overwhelm Culprits, which was how I was able to manage that. And this all now has been over 5 years, 5 to 7 years I've been in business at this point, and I've been speaking on that specific topic ever since. And yeah, that's
so let's talk about the Overwhelm Culprits. So first of all, I just love the name. I sort of envision, like, do you remember that game show where there would be gremlins on the game show and it would like ruin the game? Like, I sort of feel like they're like these little gremlins in your brain, or I don't know where they exist really, but I want to talk about the Overwhelm Culprits because your therapist said something really interesting, like you're able to process all this trauma. So as you kept on just getting hit with like one thing after another, did you reflect back and think, did I move through that in a really healthy way? Like, I don't know how I did it. Like, I don't know how I intuitively knew how to do that. Like when she said you processed your trauma, did you believe her when she said that?
I did, because when I commit to doing something, I really commit to doing it. So I was committed to processing the trauma. But what was interesting about it was I didn't really break down what I did differently until I experienced the suicide loss. But what I did was I started looking at, okay, thank you. It's okay. I started looking back at, okay, what did I notice during my high conflict divorce and all of that? What did I notice was holding me back, and what did I do to fix it? And when I did that, I noticed there were 5 specific things that there a lack of any one of these 5 things that if I was able to address it, I picked up momentum and kept going. And it allowed me to create the space and the capacity that I needed to be able to process my trauma as well as continue to show up.
Right.
As a leader.
What are these 5 things? Did you see me? Like, I'm on a bouncy chair. Did you see me just do this big bounce? Like, what? 5 things?
You're very excited.
Yeah, I am. Well, because I think it's really interesting when there are trends like that, just because I know, like, being an entrepreneur really brings up a lot. It's very tender work. So if you have any sort of limiting belief, this is when you're going to meet it. Like, it's really going to, and you have to decide. And I know the stakes feel so high, but pushing through isn't nearly as scary when you sort of know what you're dealing with. You know, if you know.
Right.
So what are, I just think these are the overwhelm culprits.
Overwhelm
these
culprits,
5 things. Okay.
There's 5 of them.
I am listening.
They're easy to remember. They all begin with the letter C. And they're all lack of any one of these things. So the first one is lack of clarity. So it's not just so much knowing what it is you want. So many of us know what we want, but we never bother to unpack why we want it. Right? So understanding that why, for me, just as a quick example, that was pivotal for me in understanding why I didn't change careers. Right? Because when I looked at it, I knew that I wanted to be a successful business owner. I wanted the house, the white picket fence, the family. I had all of that on paper. But my why was because I wanted the freedom and flexibility to be with my family. But on the flip side of that, I was with my family in the family business, but I neglected the fact I had my son.
Yes, like
right? And
you're
he
with your
became my
family of
why.
origin and not your family of
Right.
creation.
So having that clarity at that moment really helped me figure out what I needed to do to move forward. So first one's lack of clarity. Second one is lack of confidence. So not just so much knowing what you want, why you want it, you have to believe that you could do or have it, right? So this is so important. Anytime that we experience imposter syndrome, generally we're in the process of leveling up, but it's our responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility to build your confidence but yourself. So how exactly do
Why
you
do you
identify and
think,
address that?
because I know there are probably people listening to this being like, confidence, ooh, like they feel weird about it. Why do you think that is? Like, what has
Probably
society really
because
put in our brains around confidence for women?
I think, man, that's a whole different topic in keynote that I give on. That's about societal expectations on women in communication and how we show up,
Right.
especially in the workplace and places like that. In general, women in particular, we're taught from a very young age that you want to be polite, you need to be likable, you need to be all these different things. And anytime that we would show up from a place, for example, of leadership, if we're assertive, we're called aggressive, right? Where a man will often be called assertive for the exact same thing. So we get all these conflicting messages as we grow up that by the time we become adults and we are in the workplace, that then this shows up as a lack of confidence in the things that we do. We find ourselves over apologizing for things. So it's such a deep, complex topic. But in terms of the culprits itself, this is one that if it resonates for you and you're like, oh my goodness, that's me. If you can identify like what specifically it is that you don't feel confident about, and then take the action steps to bridge that gap. So for me, as an example, like I didn't believe my therapist when my therapist was like, you should become a coach and teach people how to do what you do. And I thought she was insane. But then when I actually started doing research, and looked into it, and I looked at coaching certifications and books, and I realized I had been doing that for over 15 years in my corporate career. I was coaching, but I didn't know I was coaching. So then when I was able to bridge that gap, I was like, oh yeah, I could handle this. So then the confidence gap was closed. So it's things like that. So you are responsible for building that yourself.
And it really is like filling in. Like it's so interesting. I was just talking to my daughter about this. I said, a lot of times information is very calming. And the thing is you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to figure out the next thing.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a thing after that. And there's going to be a thing after that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get to this place where you're like, oh, I get it. Because there are always going to be things, So
that's
I
why
love
I call
this.
It's the next step. And if you go on, my blog is called The Next Step. And we're always talking about like, what's that next thing after?
Yeah.
So totally with you on that.
So what's the third C?
The third C is lack of community. So you can know what you want, know why you want it, believe you could do or have it. But if the people surrounding you are either they don't believe it can happen, they don't want you to do it because it doesn't benefit them, they hold you back in any kind of way, shape, or form, then you're never going to get ahead. So the famous speaker, Jim Rohn, once said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
It's really important to analyze, like, who am I choosing to spend time with, and curate your own personal board of directors in a way to really help and support you as you go through the next step.
Right. Oh my gosh. If that is true, I'm like 30% dog.
I tell people when I do speaking events and we talk about this, I'm like, make sure you count your kids as one, because for me, it would be pretty much the entire group.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the 4th C then?
The 4th C is lack of conditioning. And this is your physical and mental health and wellness. So for working moms like me, this is the first one to go out the window, because you're taking care of everybody else first, that you very rarely take care of yourself. And if you are pouring from an empty cup, your body can't keep up, your mind can't keep up, and you are never going to perform from a place of high performance, because you're running on empty, literally. And you're also risking burnout at that point.
Oh my gosh, completely. That's also, I think, another societal thing too, that we could go into. We should have a podcast part 2 around that as well. But so I find that really interesting to think about the capacity, because when people say that about like, oh, take care of yourself, I just remember watching like an Oprah Winfrey when Dr. Phil used to be on like the first Tuesday of the month. Like one of my kids had strep throat, so I was home. That was always my treat for a sick kid. And I remember it was all about like women who really had these very pristine homes. And if there was any mess or disorder, it would literally send them over the edge.
Mhm.
And they were like, you need to do, and I'm not like that, but I could definitely relate to aspects of it. Like, I don't know if I'm really OCD, but I do like things nice and tidy in my house. Like, cause I know it's like considered a reflection of me more so than
Mhm.
maybe my husband. And I remember that they were just talking about like, oh, like make time for yourself. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm going to take a bath? Like, I couldn't even think of one thing that I would do just for myself.
Mhm.
Like, and I just, and I was probably like 38 or 39. So my kids were probably like, like 8 and 4. And I look back at that now and I'm just like, wow, that was like really, I had nothing. I couldn't even come up with one idea. And
Mhm.
so I just never did, which I
Yep.
think is really interesting. So
It's
I
very
love that
common.
that's included
Yep.
because
And
then
I
you,
go through the
and
same thing on a regular basis because for me, like the stuff I enjoy my business, right?
yeah,
So
I
when
do
people
too.
tell me
Yeah.
like, oh, you need to like find a hobby, it's like, well, my hobby is my business. I just happen to make money from
Right.
it. So I find that difficult as well, but there are activities and things that you probably actually a great one that I use with my coaching clients, which you may find helpful, is to explore what were things that you really like to do as a kid.
Yeah. Right.
Because
Right.
sometimes bringing those activities back into your life as an adult, even if it's more like create like drawing, painting, riding a bike, whatever that looks like, that could help fill your cup in a way as an adult just
Right.
as much as it did as a kid.
That's incredible. I love that. That's a great point of reference too of what
Mm-hmm.
you like to do. Okay. But
Yeah.
you know what I used to do is I used to storyboard commercials when I was like in first grade. So I knew,
Oh,
so
that's
I
awesome.
also, yeah, I just love it. Okay.
I used to
So,
make stop motion animation movies with Barbie dolls. So
oh
there
my
with you.
God, that's so fun. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me the fifth and final C in the overwhelm culprits.
Mhm. Fifth and final C is lack of consistency. So we have to design
Mm,
our lives and our businesses, which, by the way, the overall culprits could be applied to businesses, organizations, as well as individuals. When you think
right.
about it,
Right.
they apply
Yeah.
across the board. But with consistency, that's really designing your life to be able to still run consistently on your worst days just as much as your best days. We design everything usually for the best without
Right.
thinking about like, what if we don't have full capacity that day? So things like in business, we call them standard operating procedures, but even things like checklists, routines, systems, habits. How are you building structure within your life to make it easy
Right.
that you can actually show up on autopilot and still take small, tiny incremental actions towards your goals that compound over time?
Right. Yeah. That's sometimes I think too with goals, it's like, I remember when I worked corporate and I would tell my team, you can have 3 goals. 2 need to be like measurable business things, like things
Mm-hmm.
we want to see happen. And one is like developmental. And they're like, no, I have like so many more. And I'm like, no, this is going to be enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's sort of like New Year's resolutions. It's like, oh, I'm going to go work out every single day. No, you won't. Like I always set my bar so low. So I'm always successful. So I'm like, I'm going to exercise at least 2 times a week. I know I'm going to do that for sure. So there's
Mm-hmm.
rarely a time like I don't get 2 in. But even if I have like a bad week and I only get 2 in, I don't even consider that like I still am winning. Like I
You
always
are,
make
because that
things
compounds
very
over time.
easy. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. So your journey, you had a high pressure corporate role and
Mm-hmm.
you were dealing with grief and trauma, solo parenting. How you talk about being able to like have all these things going on but still showing up, and I get that completely. But how like
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like you're wired different? Because the way that you're talking about this, it's almost like this. It became like such common sense, obvious to you when you really
Mm-hmm.
took a moment to explore it to see. Oh, I see this pattern with these 5 things. And you said it's the lack of any one of those things, right?
Any one of them. So, yeah, to answer your question in short, I never had all 5 of them at once. It was
Okay.
at that moment when I'm thinking about, oh my God, this is like a really terrible day. I'm barely hanging on. When I looked at those 5 things, usually one of them was at the root of what I was experiencing at that moment. So then when
Right.
I went and I addressed it, then the beautiful part about the culprit system is you start off that you're overwhelmed, you identify what the culprit is. Then from there, you start implementing small changes, right? Everything we talked about so far, they're really minor little things that we look at.
Oh yeah,
but that helps create the capacity for that specific culprit. You start gaining momentum again, you're feeling good, and then you're going to get overwhelmed by something else, right? Something's going to happen. Usually you could identify, once again, it's start back at the root. Which one of the 5 could it be? Okay, these are different ways that I can address it. And the cycle just continues. You never, overwhelm's a cycle. Right. You're never completely stress-free. And life doesn't work that way. It'd be very boring.
Life is life. As my friend, I have a really good friend who's a Buddhist, and I was at a retreat of hers in Costa Rica, which was like pretty magical. So, when you go to an experience like that and you leave and you're just like, oh my God. And it was one of those things where we surrendered our phones for the week. Then when I got my phone back, I found out that one of my good friends had died. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I missed like all these messages where they were like, Molly went into hospice, like all this stuff. And I just felt so horrible that I missed the whole thing. And so I called her and I said, yeah, I had this like thing happen, like right at the tail end of this like really great week. And she's like, yeah. She's like, that's the shadow and the light. And she's like, and the thing is the shadow doesn't have to dim the light, and you don't have to have the light try to like light the shadow right now. Like they can completely coexist. And at first I was like, that's all you got. But at the same time, it was such like a truth that I could see those, and I could keep them separate. I could still say I had this amazing week. And yeah, then I got this news over here that something really sad happened. And it's just, it is interesting. What do you think? Do you think people have a hard time sort of like, why do you think we might have a hard time sort of digging in to what's looking inward? Is it because we don't have a framework, or we don't know where to start?
I think that people, they'll ask themselves the question to gain that self-reflection, but they don't go enough levels deep to get to the root of what it is. So they'll stay very like surface area and be like, when we were talking about the clarity portion before. Right. Yes. It's like, yeah, I'm clear on it. I want to have freedom and flexibility to be with I want freedom and flexibility. If you don't know why, and that's asking why at the end of every question, like super easy coaching frame. And it's just going through and just going, why? Why do you want that? Why do you want that? Why do you want that? And then finally you get to an answer. You're like, oh crap, that's it. It'll really strongly resonate.
In consulting, like when I worked corporately, we got to work with some consultants, and a lot of them would use this 5 whys exercise. That what are your goals? What are your goals as an organization? Why do you want that? Well, why do you want that? Well, why do you want that? And it works great, but you have to go 5 deep. Like they will not minimum. If you want to go more, but minimum of 5. And what's really amazing is I love doing it with cross-functional groups because it really reveals alignments and then obviously disparities. And as a consultant, I can see how powerful that is, because you're just like, ooh, I got everything. I know what I'm dealing with now. That's so interesting. Yeah.
And I think people are afraid of going that many levels of why down, because a lot of times it might touch on something that they're not ready to deal with or acknowledge. And it's easier just to leave it where it is.
Right. That is true. I have found that when I've done that, like there have been times I've been like, oh, I do not want to deal with this. And then because it feels like, again, the stakes are really high. And the vision I have in my brain is like, I'm on top of one high-rise building and I have to jump over an alley with like needles and like fighting dogs and like trash all over to like another high-rise building. Like I'm in the movie The Matrix. And I realized that when I do that self-exploring stuff, I just want to reassure people that sometimes it can be emotional, like it can really release something emotional, but it's always been much less dramatic than I thought it was going to be. Like it's more like stepping over a crack in the sidewalk at the end of the day. And sometimes it's like, what I like about it is, when things are so truthy, like they hit and you're just like, oh. Like I remember I had a moment like that. I was thinking about, I would tell people like, oh, my family's so competitive and everyone competed. And I was doing this meditation and I got this message loud and clear that said, no one was competing. You were the only one who was competing. And I'm like, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
But also, yes, I see that. Like, and you can sort of take it too when it's like that. Is that happen your experience too, like when you have
Oh,
those?
definitely. Great example to parallel what you talked about. For a very long time before I met my partner that passed, I was that tough girl. Like I was working at corporate. I had teal hair. I did not care. I had
Of
piercings.
course
Like
you
it's just,
did.
that was my like outside appearance. And
Oh,
when
I would love to see corporate. Like when you say corporate, we were probably very different corporate people. Like I was in like my J. Crew skirt.
Oh yeah, no, I was still in suits and I was professional, but I had teal hair. And I just did what I wanted to do and I just showed up as my authentic self. But that said, I didn't really explore why I felt I needed that kind of outwards appearance until after I lost my partner. Because after I lost my partner, I realized, hey, I don't need this anymore. Why? Like that. So I like suddenly decided I wanted to dye my hair back to its normal color. I didn't want to wear black all the time, which adorably, like you're wearing black when you're mourning somebody. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And the reason why was because for so many years, I was in an abusive relationship with my ex and the whole high conflict divorce. And I always felt like I needed to put on this like front to protect myself, that if I did, then I wouldn't be approached by people. But after I met my partner who had passed, he had more or less, he loved the way I was authentically. He's like, I think your teal hair is the best thing ever. And he just was completely accepting of me the way I was. So I realized it was safe for me not to have that armor. So ever since then, I've stripped it. I haven't needed it. But yeah, it's very interesting when you can like look inwards and be like, why am I drawn to this? Or why do I do this thing all the time? You
like,
can learn
why
a
do
lot
I
about
feel
yourself.
like if something like, I think that's a great, one of the things I like about asking that question, why, is neurologically something happens in your brain where you're literally wired for possibility. Like just by asking the question, like, why, as opposed to like, you could even say like, why is this happening? Like as opposed to, I'm really like things that people are never allowed. Like once I start working with my clients, I said, there are just some things that we're never allowed to see anymore, which is I'm struggling with, or I'm, and it's like, I said, because I'd rather have you say like, I'm curious why this isn't working, or I'm curious about, I tried this. Because when you say curious, when you say why, you're upward. Like it does, it changed. And it's beyond positive thought. Like it literally trips something in your brain too. So I think that's just super. And it's such a good reminder for me because I feel like I haven't journaled yet today. And so I'm really excited to journal now because I feel like I'm going to be asking it. Just get ready, spirit guides. I'm asking a lot of questions today. So if someone is listening and they're in that space like you've been in, they're numb, exhausted, unsure where to begin. They also have teal hair and they're like, why was this important to me? Do I go back to my natural color? What is one gentle but like concrete step you suggest that they take right this second, like right after this interview?
Sure. I would say the very best thing that you could do for yourself is allow yourself to take a beat. So many of us, we don't like pause and say like, hey, I need space to process this. Or like, wow, that was a big realization. I don't know why that triggered me. Or I don't know why I feel this way. To actually process and understand, like, it's okay. You don't need to have all the answers right now. Take things day by day. For me, when I was going through the thick of everything, the biggest mindset shift that I made, because I was such a high performer, I was always thinking of like the 5-year vision and how far was I off from that? And oh no, I'm getting divorced. I'm starting from scratch again. Like there goes the family and the white picket fence and all that.
Right.
And the very first shift I had to do was think, okay, I have to take this day by day, right? Like what went well today? What didn't go well today? What can I do differently tomorrow? And start looking at it under that lens instead of thinking about how far off I am from where it is I want to be going.
Yeah. Yes.
And create that time and space for that reflection, because otherwise, if you aren't clear on that, you're going to be heading in a misaligned direction.
Right. And what I like about that practice too is that you start off with gratitude, which like so many people are like, oh my God, you gotta have a gratitude practice. You gotta have a gratitude practice. I'm like, so many that I'm like, I'm never going to have a I don't know why. Like people will be like, oh my God, you need to read the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm like, I'm not going to read that. And then I'm in the bookstore and it's like falls off the shelf like into my hands. And I'm
Universe
like,
is telling you,
I'll read it.
Read this.
And then it's amazing. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, then I recommend it. I'm one of those people too. That's like, oh my God, you got to read that book. So sometimes I get so resistant to common theories like that. But then having a gratitude practice, it literally like changes again, neurologically, like it helps to grow more white matter in your brain, which is like very good for your brain. And then that gratitude sets the stage for what went well, gratitude, what would I change, intention, you know, and I love that. Yeah. It's really helpful to do. And it doesn't take that long. It takes like just a few minutes.
It doesn't. And I'll tell you what, like gratitude practice specifically is what helped me get through my suicide loss, because there was a period I couldn't take care of my kid.
I can imagine.
It was like, I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. And at one point I made myself a commitment. I was at that time too, you had touched on Buddhism. I was exploring different theories and stuff like that in there to process everything that was going on. And I remembered I made a commitment to myself that I would not allow myself to get out of bed unless I could think of 3 things that morning that I was grateful for. And the big shift for me was, I think a lot of people, they think gratitude practice, and you need to be like happy for rainbows and sunshine and unicorns and things that don't make sense when you're in that low of a place. So for me, it started off, and these are real things I was grateful for. I was grateful I found my son's missing shoe. I was grateful that I did laundry the day before and I didn't have to do it today. Like, it was things like that.
Yes.
And that then it becomes easy, because as you go throughout the day, you're looking for those little things, because you are so low. You're like, there can't possibly be anything that's good that's going to happen. But then things do happen, and it starts rewiring your thinking as you move through life. And eventually it's become, even to this day, I still every single morning in my journal, like, what am I grateful for? It's completely changed my way of thinking.
I love that. So Cory, if people are like, wow, I want to learn more, I want to have her come speak at my event, I want to work with her, where can they find you?
You can find me at CorrieLo.com, CorrieLo.com. And I've got all my information for coaching, speaking. There is a book on the 5 Overwhelm Culprits coming out. So
amazing.
If you want to get
Congratulations.
Like, specific strategies,
what's the title?
For each one, the 5 Overwhelm Culprits.
I love it.
That'll be out in early 2026. So keep an eye out for that. But all the information is on my website. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I just want to say it was absolutely a pleasure to talk to you. I love how pragmatic you make all these amazing practices. So they seem so easy and so like, of course I can do that. And you seem like just such a radiant human being. So I can tell what you're doing is working. So thank you so much for saying yes to Curveball. This is going to be a conversation I remember for a long time.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for having me.